Well, folks, in today's video, we're going to be working on this vintage Santa Fe Alco Century 630 locomotive from TYCO. This was a locomotive which was included in a previous video called Buying Shady Model Trains Off of eBay. And in that video, I basically bid for a lot of a whole bunch of different locomotives, and this was one of them. And I think it probably wins the award for the shadiest locomotive in that lot because it's missing a whole bunch of different parts. The front of it's completely gone. It doesn't run whatsoever. I think the drive is seized. So this thing is really kind of more destined for the parts bin more than anything. But I want to give it a second chance. So today we'll see if we can get this thing riding the rails once again. Last time when we tested this thing, it didn't really seem to be doing much of anything, but we'll take it over, we'll test it again, try to figure out what's going on with it, and then go from there. So we'll just see if we can get a better idea of what exactly is going on with this locomotive here. We'll put some power in the track, and I actually just saw it move a tiny bit. It doesn't really seem to be picking up power. Let's try changing the direction. Sometimes that can get these things going. Yeah, it seems to be having some electrical issues. So clearly this locomotive is not in the best of shape, but I mean, we really already knew that. So the question now is, can we get down to the motor and figure out why it isn't running? So the first thing we need to do is get these clips to come out like that. Same goes for the ones on the other side. Alright, so there's the motor, commutator, and everything else. It certainly needs some cleaning, but honestly this was not near to as bad as I was expecting. You know, sometimes you open these things up and they're completely burnt, so far this isn't looking too bad. Obviously, you know, we can't really see the coils, but the springs look to be in good condition, and that's usually a good indicator that the motor hasn't overheated, because when a motor overheats, a lot of current goes through those springs and they usually become all misshapen, so that's a good sign. So as usual, we'll just take a fiberglass pencil at it and see if we can just kind of scrape off all the oxidization and carbon. I can't tell if that is a crack or a scratch in one of the plates on the commutator there, but that's not such a good thing because that could actually wear down the brush a little bit faster, but there's not a whole lot I can really do about that. The metal's really thin, so trying to resurface it might be a little bit tricky, so I think we're just going to let that ride and kind of hope for the best. But otherwise, I feel pretty good about putting this back on and then focusing our attention on the gearbox. So we'll see if what I just did there actually works. What you're really supposed to do is get a piece of cardboard to hold the brushes in place while you lower this plate down or remove the plates. The problem is that I find trying to pull that piece of cardboard out can be a little bit challenging. You might accidentally end up pulling out the brush, and removing the plates is just a bit of a nightmare in my experience because, you know, the plastic's just so brittle. Of course, the gearbox hasn't been cleaned, so it might still be preventing it from turning. It's definitely getting power. Yeah, you know what? This thing is just so gummed up, I don't think the motor can turn over. So let's try taking this gearbox apart and see if we can fix that. And then once we have these gears out, we'll be able to test the motor and find out if it's good or not. So we're going to try to remove this gear right here. It's called the pivot gear. And when you remove this, you usually have to put some sort of an adhesive when you put it back, otherwise it will slip. Some people actually suggest not removing this, but in cases like this where the engine's packed with old lubricant, in my opinion, you don't really have too much of a choice. In fact, it looks like somebody tried to glue something on this back together, and they actually got glue in the gearbox. So no wonder this engine can't run. That would wreck even the best of locomotives. Now, these bottom gears do appear to be turning well. However, that's a lot of dust and hair packed in there. Yikes. See, this is what happens when you don't open these things up to have a look. You know, you wouldn't have any idea that was in there. Nasty stuff. And even the gears that don't look like they have anything around them actually do. So now let's see if that motor works. Oh, yeah, that's really promising. Wow, that actually sounds really good. And it's got some torque, too. Okay, well that's very promising. I guess the motor was not the problem here. It was just so packed with crap that it couldn't turn over. So now the goal is going to be seeing if we can recover these gears and get all the old lubricant off them. There's not a whole lot of grease, but yeah, I don't know. We'll see what we can do here. Oh, very good. Trying to get my fingers out of the way here. I think I know what's going on here. Somebody split the gear and they tried to glue it back together. Okay, so this gear is junk. Luckily, TYCO power torques are very common, and I'm sure I have one of these gears in parts. It's a shame we couldn't save this one, but it's the whole reason that this engine wasn't running, so away that goes. So now it's time to find out if we can find a spare gear for this locomotive. The good news is that power torques basically all use the same parts, so we just need to find another power torque drive and steal the gear off of that. And I'm pretty confident that I probably have one down here somewhere. Let's have a look on the next level here. There's a power torque. Now this does have the gear we need, but that's a pretty nice looking block. This is very much reusable. In fact, it might be in working order, so we're gonna save that one. I'm more interested in finding one that's junked. See, like that's a bad block, but no gears left. Okay, I've got another spot where I have more parts. So here's my table junk bin, although everything in here is a little more miscellaneous, so I'm not so sure if we're gonna find one in here, but we'll have a look. Well, we can use that. Here's parts bin number 4. And there certainly is some power torque stuff in here, so that's a promising sign. Oh, there we go. So it looks like this engine might just be saved. So that is probably the best news so far with this project, because trying to hunt down parts for these things, you know, it's not impossible. We could have taken that other drive, but I'd rather not sink too much into a locomotive like this. Now anyways, I got these Q-tips here, and I just put a little bit of dish soap on the end here, so we're just going to try to kind of scrub off all the old grease and stuff. There's not a whole lot of it, so you know, I don't really have to do as thorough a cleaning as usual, you know, with a toothbrush and things like that, but it would be good just to get all the stuff off. Alright, so with everything all cleaned up, I think we can start adding some fresh oil. We'll start with all the pivots here, and we'll coat this surface with a little bit of oil as well, because there is some friction there. And then we put the two bottom gears in. Overall, it seems to be turning pretty well, but just to be safe, I'll throw a little bit of grease just under here. And I'll just clean these up. Alright, so I think at this point we can probably just go ahead and reinstall the wheels and the bottom cover there. It should all be good. Hey, well, that seems promising. Well, that's a great sign. Obviously, things perform a little bit differently when they're actually on the tracks, but that's all very promising. I guess the other thing I want to check is whether or not this light works. It kind of looks burnt, but I'll try it anyways. Yeah, that's kind of done for. Alright, well, I guess we've got this whole thing back together. Let's take it over to the track and see if our efforts have paid off. Alright, folks, what do you think? Have we got a runner on our hands, or have we got a dud? Let's find out. Oh, yeah. Well, it's not perfect, but I think we can call that a runner. This might need to break in a little bit. Alright, well, it's about 2 minutes later, and it's doing a lot better already. It's running consistently now, and it stopped making angry squirrel noises, so it's all very good. It's still making a bit of a thumping noise, which is kind of weird. I guess one of the gears is probably bad. But overall, I'm very happy with it. You know, when we started off, this engine was completely junked and kind of hopeless, and here it is flying around the layout. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any coupler pockets, so I can't hook it up to a train, but I'm quite happy with how it is. Well, I'm thoroughly impressed. Even the current draws in check. Now let's do a low speed test. See what we can do here. Oh, it's down to about 3 volts right there. Yeah, it's cogging pretty bad, but that's just because of what kind of motor it has. But for an old power torque, that's actually, you know, not that bad right there. So yeah, I'm overall very happy with how this thing turned out. It actually mechanically was in far better shape than I ever could have imagined. So for an engine that was destined for the scrap bin, this is a terrific result. So I think I'm going to call it a video here, but I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. And with that, we will finish things off.